Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and today we'll be looking at the destruction effects in Mana 4 Assault Squad 2. As you'll see in the series, some of the coolest destruction effects are actually in strategy games, and Assault Squad 2 is no exception. It's a game I got a whole bunch of requests for over the years, but only did a proper dive into it recently, and gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. It's quite rough around the edges, there's definitely jank, but as you'll see in this video, there's a lot of very cool functionality here. And I should note that I'm using a mod to let the wrecks and bodies stay for much longer. Not permanently, but definitely enough to enhance the aftermath by a very notable degree. There is an effect on performance that you will very clearly see in some of the messier fights, especially since you have the wrecks responding. They don't become static after they blow up. So do keep that in mind if you're gonna use the mod. In my opinion, I would take a nice aftermath even if the price is some hiccups. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. The big feature in our theme is the building destruction. Like in many other games, it is based on variations mapped all through the building. Once a variation takes enough damage, you'll see it get destroyed. But in some ways, it is a more advanced and definitely a more interesting system than what we're used to in, say, Company of Heroes or even Bad Company 2. And the reason for that is that there is no building health bar. The variations are mapped through all of the building, including the inside walls, and there is some form of structural integrity relations between the various parts. You won't have a single section of a wall hold up an entire building. It means that you can have a very large variety of results. Some of it can look like it's right out of a World War II documentary. Some of it will look a little odd, but I'll take that over a health bar destroyed state system any day. I should note that I have seen debris, both building debris and other types of it, last notably longer than we have in most games, which will contribute to a messy aftermath feel. I think this one is actually a vanilla game feature. In the mod description, I haven't seen anything about building debris and other types of it, only about bodies and vehicle wrecks. And in some cases, I have seen piles of rubble from the old destroyed variations. You won't always have it, but I think it's a really cool feature and I would absolutely like to see it more often in games. Just generic piles of rubble forming after big sections collapse. Definitely better over debris that disappears in 10-15 seconds. But of course, there are issues. You have glitchy stuff like hovering debris or hovering characters where a floor used to be. If something was hit but didn't come down, there is no damage to look to it. You do have a cracked state, but only for the few indestructible walls the game has. But the big one is, the areas around the destroyed variation will look clean. So a building can be half destroyed, but everything around the holes will look basically undamaged. As for terrain and vegetation, it varies. I have seen hits that do deform the terrain, most notably heavy artillery and airstrikes. It's not a kind of system where that crater can expand. If you land another one near it, there will be nothing. The most common response though will be decals, for stuff like mortars and tank shells. Aside from the lack of terrain deformation, it will look a little odd when a bunch of them appear right near each other. I don't know the charred ground decal below blown up vehicles. I think that one's really cool. And should be noted that I have seen a destructible rock in testing. The other ones I tried don't show damage. As for vegetation, you'll see trees coming down, and stuff like bushes or grass will either get burned or blown up. The weird thing about it is that some of it can only be burned and can't be blown up. And of course, you have a variety of objects and props that can get destroyed during the fight. The cool thing about it is, some props that usually don't get destroyed in other games will show visual damage here. Of course, that is pre-made and there is no further damage, but it is pretty cool. As for limitations, there are some indestructible walls and structures here and there. Haven't seen big bridges go down. Some ledges don't have a damaged variation and stuff like that. But generally, I didn't find it to be much of an issue since practically everything can be either destroyed or show nice visual damage. So the few things that don't respond or don't respond quite as nicely is by no means a big deal. There are several more factors. Vehicle damage is a big feature in the game. There are armor and ballistic simulations. I have seen shells go through armor or ricochet of it at certain angles. And, much like buildings, the vehicles don't have a health bar either. What you have instead is various parts of it that can get damaged and they will react appropriately. So, if you damage the tracks, for example, the tank will be immobile, but it still is operational. I had this time when the tower, I think it's called, was damaged, so that couldn't move, but if I turned the tank itself and point the barrel in the right direction, I could still fire. It also means that if you hit the right spots, damage the right areas, you can render the tank useless without necessarily blowing it up. And this is actually quite common. All of that comes with visual damage. Each year, most vehicles are divided into sections that will get a damaged variation or a damaged texture when hit. And so, what you get is a very wide variety of possible responses. You don't have that binary of either a functional vehicle that may show some damage or a burning wreck. Hits may seriously hinder its operation, but it will still be functional. You might see the engine get destroyed and the crew escape. You can see the vehicle catch fire. Or it might just blow up on the one and only hit it ever takes. So, very impressive stuff all around and I dig it a lot. Fire is also a factor, but it's not nearly as major as the vehicle stuff. Explosions may set a flammable object on fire and you will see it spread from there. It doesn't happen a whole lot. I saw it consistently only on a plain bombing run. It can still absolutely catch you by surprise. In conclusion, there is a notable level of jankiness, but I like it a lot. The building destruction can deliver awesome results. The vehicle damage is really impressive, and the answer to the question, I see it, can I blow it up, is in most cases a definite yes. You'll be seeing towns, villages, industrial areas turn into ruins and rubble, and all of that will happen one explosion at a time. The issues are in the terrain and vegetation aspects. They deliver a basic response for the most part, but they are not quite as good. And there are some performance hiccups actually not caused by the Aftermath mod. Here I was messing around with the plane crash with literally nothing else going on anywhere. Despite those, it is a responsive experience that I can recommend, and I am quite curious about Man of War 2 that should be coming out sometime this year. Would there be some new functionality? Perhaps improvements to things that are a little lacking over here? Or would it mainly be a facelift with basically the same mechanics? We'll wait and see. So, that's it for today. Do let me know how you feel in the comment section, and if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and share it around. And consider supporting the channel on Patreon. For $1 a month you get these videos a week early, you get the interviews a week early, and you help out the channel. So a big thank you to all the Patreon members, and consider joining as well. Also, if you like the music you hear in the intro, outro, and in the background, the YouTube and Spotify playlists are in the description. Until next time.